Hello everybody and welcome to the Tradition Mortgage Podcast. I'm Mike Greenlay, your host. Today we will continue our series with Erik Hendrikson, President of Tradition Mortgage, and we'll also be bringing in a special guest, this time with a focus on land development. And first of all, Erik, I just wanted to welcome you once again, first of all, but also talk a little bit about the integration of Tradition companies and all the Minnesota-based family of companies and how they interrelate, because obviously we have this many companies. There's projects that they don't do together. There's a lot of projects that they do together. How do you guys keep that all in order, and how is that accomplished for such a long period of time?
Well, thanks, Mike. I'm glad to be here. You know, as it relates to the various Tradition companies, really they developed out of, you know, involvement in real estate, going way back to Ennebeck Construction back in the early 1900s. But, you know, more recently, over the last 20 plus years, you know, really on the finance side. So for us, as we, you know, moved earth on land, we developed land looking for ways to finance that land and actually bring product to market. You know, certainly with the mortgage company that I head up, but our title company. Really, as we grew, it was really from a standpoint of how do we make the transaction easier for our clients? So if we're doing earth moving, can we finance the project cost for the client? And, you know, again, starting a bank, can we make that financing process even easier by being the actual financial institution that can potentially place that debt for a client? So really, you know, the profitability was second to just how can we bring things together, make life simple for the customer. There's a, you know, the reality is in real estate and finance, there's a lot of different parties involved, a lot of different pieces in the chain or links in the chain that come together. So the more of those chains we can control ourselves, the more we can ensure that that client experience is a good one. And I wish I could say we had a master plan all put together back 20 plus years ago, but it was just kind of head down, working hard. And when opportunities presented themselves, you know, we were entrepreneur-like, and we just we weren't afraid to try some things, and certainly some things have worked better than others, but along the way we've managed to put together a pretty exciting group of companies.
Someone who's very familiar with how Tradition companies operate and the many relationships that they have is Adam Mickelson. He's our special guest today. He's a CFO of Tradition companies, as well as a chief financial strategist for land acquisition and development. I know that sounds like a lot, because it is a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, and that's what we'll be talking about today. Welcome, Adam. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mike.
So tell us a little bit about how this past year has been. It's been crazy for everybody in so many different ways, but I can't imagine that land development has been any different.
No, that's right. The last year has given us a lot of challenges. What happened last year, when the pandemic started, everybody across the board in home building and land development pressed the pause button for a good 2 to 3 months, and everybody was scared. What's going to happen? Is the bottom going to fall out? And that caused this 3-month delay, roughly speaking, in the progression of any product in any projects. But then you fast forward a couple months, you get into June, July, and someone poured gasoline on the fire for home building. Yeah. And it took off, and sales since then have been out of control, like setting records. Not only for our home builders, but you know, across the entire region, the nationals and everyone else. So what happened is you have this delay in these projects, and when you can't get lots in the ground by the time the snow flies, you're delayed another 6 months before you can get those in. And we chewed through all of our lots. You know, not all of them, but we sold a vast majority of the lots that we had in the ground and kind of in line. So that's a great problem to have, but it forces us to have to really get after it to be able to have a lot of inventory, the runway to be able to sell into. And the issue when it comes to land development is that it's not snap your fingers and you put a lot in the ground in 3-4 months. It's typically anywhere from 1.5 to 2 year process, from the time you identify a site to the time you have a platted lot that you're able to build on. And it's a very long and drawn out process that depends a lot on where the lots are, which cities. Each city has different requirements, and there's all kinds of factors that lead to that.
So, Erik, you're very heavily involved with the mortgage company, but you're also involved with other tradition companies. How is your relationship or what you involve yourself with when it comes to things that are a little bit earlier in the life cycle? I mean, if you look at from the dirt to the door, you're a little bit later in the life cycle because of mortgages. But how are you involved with maybe land development, or how they operate and how they do things?
Well, thanks, Mike, for the question. You know, my role certainly is later on in the cycle where we're putting together, you know, mortgage products for end users that are ultimately buying these houses. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of way down the line as far as my primary job, but certainly being involved with the tradition companies over the last 20 plus years, you know, I've had an opportunity to kind of ride along and just see the whole process, and certainly I appreciate Adam and Jake keeping me in the loop and talking to me about certain projects, and you know, they'll have questions as it relates to, you know, what type of end mortgage products might be suited for those certain price points. So they're smart. Well, they know at the end of the day, you know, if a client is interested in buying, they need to have the ability to finance and readily finance that purchase, that home. Not too many people are writing a check for $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 out there. So just really more from just kind of a strategist standpoint. But I do appreciate what they do. You know, I talk about on the mortgage side, we're kind of singles and doubles hitters. You know, in our life cycle of a mortgage loan is maybe 2-3 months, or on a new construction it might be 6 to 9 months, which we think is an eternity in the mortgage business, where I see these guys grinding over blueprints, and they're going to city council meetings for sometimes years, and they've devoted, you know, could be over 1,000 hours of due diligence into a particular land project, and after all the feasibility and everything else, you know, it gets scuttled. And it's just, to me, that'd be like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I would have the grit and the stick-to-itiveness to keep going. So they're definitely home run hitters, and when the projects do go, they're really big. But to me, what you know, the challenges in land development is there's such a long period of time there. You have economic cycles that ebb and flow, where you might start a process of looking at a project or a piece of land, and the economy is doing a certain thing or looks great, and by the time you actually get it through approvals, the economy is completely flipped, and you know, maybe real estate is not as the absorption rates are down. So you really have to have some true grit and nerves of steel to proceed. So for me, I'm kind of glad that I'm over on the mortgage side, just kind of knocking down, like I said, my singles and doubles.
Well, so Adam, but to that point, one thing that Erik did say was that, you know, you'll have conversations where you're looking for a certain product, or you're talking about certain product or certain levels. Now, what would you be looking into? Now, obviously, things like pandemics and other world events or events nationally that affect the markets. That, you know, obviously you can't predict all of those things, but in a normal market, your guys are looking a 1.5 years or 2 years down the road, like you said. What are some of the factors that you're looking at? One of them is talking to mortgage people like Erik, and also knowing what type of product you want to make available. So what are some of the details on that?
Well, you know, when it comes to site selection, the first thing we're looking at is is it a good location that people want to live in? It sounds really simplistic, but you know, that a lot of that's driven by school district. That's really important to people who are our target buyers, typically second home, move-up buyer, and they got kids that are coming of age and going to be in school. So we look for good school districts. If you look at the neighborhoods we're in, we're typically in pretty good school districts. That's pretty important to us. We're not the only ones who want to be in good school districts. So the competition for land in those areas is high, and I will tell you right now, it's getting a lot more intense, and it's getting harder to find good locations at a reasonable price. Land prices are going up. It's getting harder to make the land side of the deal pencil, but we have to balance that with we need places to build as well. As it relates to the type of product, on the land development side, we're looking at sites where we can have a variety of different product types. Our bailiwick has been, anywhere from the 2,500 to 4,000 foot square foot single family home. And we're now starting to venture into the smaller footprint to get more affordable, to provide more affordable offerings, because that 4,000 square foot footprint house is now getting really expensive. Prices just keep going up. And that impacts the type of financing that we work with Tradition Mortgage on. We made a strategic decision last year that for these much higher priced homes that we want to work with Tradition Mortgage to do construction to perm financing. And so we worked with them to develop a program that we now have over a dozen individuals who are in that program. It seems to be working fine, and it's for that relationship we have with mortgage and with Tradition Capital Bank that we're able to serve all our customer needs. It's worked out well.
Yeah, it is interesting how the cost of construction and being in those prime areas has just really gone up tremendously. Those of us over on the qualification side, you see those numbers and where we were 10 years ago versus today. It is expensive. So the new construction piece, the affordability, are there ways to value engineer, try to bring that price point down to open it up to, a broader market. And that's where, Robert Thomas Homes in conjunction with Tradition Development, they've really, looking at different innovative ways, different types of product to kind of bring that down. But that is the one challenge you have with new construction. You can get what you want and you can have a say in the design, but just you're going to pay for that. And the affordability piece is something we're always going to be kind of wrestling with as we go forward.
And I was just down actually in Woodbury a couple days ago with the Parade of Homes, and so I know that you guys are doing doing a lot of projects out in Woodbury. I think you also have other ones in other parts of the city, Prior Lake coming up, if I'm not mistaken. Why don't you outline for us a little bit of what you have going on right now that people will see, probably not in the 2-year time frame, but maybe in that 6 month, between now and the 6 month time frame.
Yeah, so our home base has been here in Spirit down in Lakeville, and this project's been going on for almost 20 years. It's a legacy project. It's been our go-to, and believe it or not, we're down to our last little section of lots that we anticipate will, if not sold out this year, will be at some point next year, and then we're done, which is amazing. So between here and our harvest site in Chaska, those two have been sort of the foundations of our footprint.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to start looking at new places. One of those places that's coming online, hopefully next week, we're finalizing the plat for this project is in Prior Lake. It's going to be called Pike Lake Landing, I believe is the name of it. And there's going to be 25 single-family lots there. We have a waiting list, I think, that's about 200 long, from what I hear. So we're anticipating those lots aren't going to hang around too long. Ron Clark Construction is going to be constructing some kind of empty nester villa product there as well. That's the most current one that's coming online. We've got deals that we're looking at in Victoria. We've got deals that we're looking at in St. Michael. Mm-hmm. In those, again, we're still in the process of the due diligence phase and basically determining the feasibility of those projects. But we're hungry and we're getting after it, and there will be new projects because that's what we do.
It's amazing, Adam. You talk about the Spirit of Branch and Farms project that's almost complete,
yeah.
And for those that have been down here recently, it's a very sprawling, massive community. Gorgeous. And I guess, Mike, relating back to you asking about my involvement in land development, yeah. I think that I knew you know, my future in it was limited when, you know, I guess looking back when this land was first identified by Tip Ennebeck, and, you know, it had the old farmstead, and it was just kind of a wild, abandoned wilderness, basically, and he brought it into the, you know, the office, and he was excited, and he was kind of sharing his vision, and I came down here, and I walked around, and I thought, he is crazy. This is, where are we? I thought we were in maybe Iowa. I mean, it was like, I couldn't, you know, just see what he was talking about, but that's just, you know, the land development people, they have that vision in their head, and they have to see beyond the small ebbs and flows. They have to look at, you know, long term. They have to have that horse sense to see really where is the direction going, you know, for communities. Where do people want to be long term? And you know, I knew my future was squarely in banking and lending, because I was not an innovator. I drive down here just infrequently enough down to the Lakeville offices, probably about once a month, and I just am amazed that there's just so many more new homes and the development and, you know, the commercial activity along this corridor. It's just truly amazing, and it's to think that, you know, it started as basically an abandoned farm, you know, 20 plus years ago, to now see it what it is today. Again, it just gives me a tremendous amount of appreciation for our guys and gals on the land development side and what they do. It's truly amazing.
But you know what, Eric, and I know you and I have had conversations about this as it relates mostly to mortgage, but not specifically, not necessarily just that. And that's about experience in the business. And actually, the other day we were talking about it as it related to land development. Of course, I want Adam to chime in on this too, but how big is that? And I know that everyone says, well, experience is important, but, you know, it's not just a one-off thing where people can dive into stuff like this. I mean, there's all kinds of quagmires and pitfalls and all kinds of things that you can run into. And so how important is that to you, knowing that that the beginning of the timeline has a lot of experience, and you guys do as well?
Oh, it's huge. You know, I think, you know, being a developer or a land developer is kind of a sexy term for a while, and people thought you just kind of swing in and you put these plans together, and you just, you know, all of a sudden it works out perfectly, and you sell the lots off, and you walk away with a big chunk of money in your pocket. But, you know, you have to have, you know, obviously a strong balance sheet, number one, to be able to weather the storm. Because when you buy a big piece of land, there's massive costs that go in up front with the due diligence, and also the infrastructure that needs to be put in, the curb, the gutter, you know, the permitting. There's a huge amount of costs that go in before you make a dime. And until you sell the lots off, there's no income. It's not an apartment building where you're collecting rents along the way. So you really, again, have to have, you know, strong financial footings to be able to, you know, go into the project. And again, you have to have tremendous knowledge, because through all those ups and downs in that long time period, you want to come out the other side, you know, in one piece, and hopefully with some, you know, some return, some you know, profit in your pocket at the end of the day too. So certainly, you know, I've been really impressed with all the people at Tradition Development, again, being able to actually, you know, go from A to Z, from start to finish, and make projects work.
A couple things on that experience. You know, what Tradition Development has created is a reputation and a track record for performing.
Yeah.
And one of the big advantages I see that we have is people call Jake.
Yeah. Jake Ennebeck, yep.
People call Jake Ennebeck and say, hey, we got a beat on this piece of ground. And they're not listed. We're not driving around. You can drive around anywhere and you can see a sign with any big commercial broker that says land for sale. We're not calling on those pieces of land. We're not making those calls. People are calling Jake Ennebeck because they want us to be their buyer and be the developer, because one, they know that we can perform. We know that we have the ability to do it, the discipline to do it. And a lot of times they want to work with us because they like our vision of what we do in our neighborhoods. So that provides actually a big competitive advantage for us in being able to find locations and do what we do. The other thing I'll say too, in terms of experience, is Ennebeck Construction is an enormous in-house advantage that we have, because not only do we do the entitlement work for the land, but we also build it in the form of Ennebeck Construction. So we're able to go through the process of our due diligence with an in-house contractor that knows how to build sites and understands the dirt. You know, does the site balance? What kind of materials are we dealing with? Is it even feasible for us to take a harder look at this? And we can distinguish that and make those decisions on the front end because we have that expertise in house. You add all these things together, Ennebek construction experience, track record with Tradition Development of performing, the wherewithal to get these big deals done, the ability to build homes on them, finance them through Tradition Mortgage and Tradition Capital Bank, and it's really a unique situation that we have here, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
No, it truly is. I mean, it's amazing that you know, we always joke about the saying from dirt to door, but really that's what you're doing, and you have that capability, and that's just something that people, you know, in the industry don't, or people that are maybe one-off that do one of those things, they don't have that relationship. And I know that we talk about synergy in the tradition companies all the time for that reason. And that's got to be such a huge feather in your cap that other people just don't have. I mean, and not that we take it for granted, but that's something that you know you have in your back pocket.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, these deals, the costs are extreme, and the margins are relatively thin. So, you know, if you're just a standalone developer and you're trying to bring in all these third parties and everybody's trying to get their full margin, you know, it just doesn't work. You know, when you're coming together as a group, everybody kind of takes one step to the middle, and you can put a project together and you create that synergy, and the profitability comes back because of that. You know, where if you deconstructed those pieces and you had to operate independently, you know, in many cases it just wouldn't work.
I can't even tell you how many times Jake and Pat Rossi and Big Rob in our office are looking at a new piece of ground that we haven't looked at before, but Ennebek Construction has 10, 15 years ago, because someone else was looking at it, and Ennebek Construction did a takeoff and figured out the grading plan. I mean, that has happened so many times where we already have
the work done,
and the knowledge in house, and we can take a look at this piece of dirt and say, oh yeah, this is going to work, or no, not a chance. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
I mean, at the end of the day, to be successful land development, it's an insider's game. I mean, you have to be, you know, you have to have that networking, that history, those roots to really be successful. So there's a lot of pretenders out there, you know, but to be able to truly execute, you have to have that experience. And it's you know, it's something that we're blessed to have. And again, that goes back to the roots of the original Tradition company, Ennebek Construction, and the hard work that they put in over the years.
Yeah. Well, guys, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of work to be done. It sounds like it's certainly not an easy job to do, but you guys do it very well. And thank you, Adam, and thank you, Erik, for joining us.
Appreciate it.
It's a lot of good information there, and best of luck to both of you.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.